Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. We have a lot of cards to talk about today. Some of them may shock you the way the cards on the screen are shocking Bruvac right now. Anyway, Streets of New Capenna is out. A lot of players are building new commander decks around these new cards. That's the key driver for card values going up this week. However, there's a lot of other things going on too. We'll dig into all of it. Today's threshold for the video is going to be $3. We're not going to talk about any card unless it's moving at least $3 up or down. Quickly before we get into the details though, just a fast reminder. If you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pick up Streets of New Capenna products there, but they have a whole lot of other things on their website as well. And remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated. So thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We are going to begin, as we usually do, with the standard legal spotlight. These are standard legal cards that are moving the most this week. And yes, now that Streets of New Capenna has been out for a week, we have added those cards into the Market Watch. You're going to see some of those in this section. We also did add the new commander cards as well. The cards from the list that were added with New Capenna, I haven't put them into the video yet. They're still pretty volatile. Maybe in another week or two, those will stabilize. But anyway, let's see what's happening in the world of standard. First card is Lord Xander the Collector, down $3 to $6.42. Now, this is just settling into its price point as packs are being cracked. Nothing too unusual here. But it has quickly become a very popular commander. And it's also showing up in the 99 of a lot of builds, old and new. This name is going to come up a few times throughout the video when we discuss why some cards are going up in value. Next we have Omnixilus the Adversary. This is down $3.06 to $31.17. Another card simply finding its price point as packs are opened. And this has already started to see some standard play in builds like Rakdos and Mardu Control. It's even appeared in a legacy deck, Grixis Tempo. And it's also getting commander play too in Zeatora the Incinerator and a number of other builds, old and new. And the last card going down in value in this section is Cultivator Colossus. This is the one from Innistrad Double Feature though, and it is down $4.08 this week to $37.71. You might remember last week we saw this card have an overly aggressive spike. Now it is coming down at least a little bit from that spike. In Modern, it's an Amulet Titan. It's also in the Wargate deck, which has been doing well in MTGO recently. Plus it's in a variety of commander builds like Omnith Locus of Creation, for example. Next is Storm-Carved Coast. This is the copy from Innistrad Crimson Vow. This goes up $3.42 this week to $14.73. And this is a huge standard mana-based card, as you could guess. Jeskai Combo will use it. Is it Dragons and more? In Pioneer, this gets a ton of play. And that's really, I think, the key driver for the price moving as much as it is. Just simply because that Pioneer format continues to be hot. Players are trying to solve it. They're scrambling to build decks because this season's regional championships are going to be Pioneer. And you need to get through one of those to get to the Pro Tour. You'll find Storm-Carved Coast and Pioneer decks like Izzet Control and Izzet Phoenix, both are very popular and highly played decks. Good commander mana-based card too. I have seen some adding this to the Maestro's Massacre commander deck, or putting it in fresh builds around a card from there in Hello the Painter. It is in those Lord Xander decks too, and in builds around another new card, Evelyn the Covetous. Rafine Scheming Seer. You typically don't see mythic rares jumping up aggressively right after a product is released and a lot of packs are being opened. So this is one to keep an eye on. It's up $3.51 this week to $6.50. It is in standard Esper midrange, but it also has become a popular commander very quickly. And it's in the 99 of some other builds too, both old and new. The Meathook Massacre. This is the copy from Double Feature. It goes up $3.67 this week to $76.33. This was losing some value last week, rebounds some this week. In Standard, this thing's all over the place. Orzhov Control, Rakdos Midrange, and much more. In Pioneer, it's in Jund, as well as Rakdos Sacrifice and Mono Black Devotion, and it does get a good amount of commander play too. It is in Corvold Baker's King builds, and those are popular right now due to the support that card is getting from Streets of New Capenna. It also has seen increased commander play there and some Zeatora builds as well. Old Gnawbone up $4.68 this week to $36.28, and this is also in Commander Corvold builds. And it is seeing increased play in a number of new decks in the format coming out of Streets of New Capenna. Things like Agnes the Dragon's Lash, Zeatora, Ginny Faye Jetmir II, Jolene the Plunder Queen, and Vazikeen Negotiator. Obviously, this is a more sought after card now due to the focus on treasure tokens in Streets of New Capenna. And the last card in this section is Ledger Shredder, up $8.03 this week to $9. It seems like every set has that one card that just automatically out of the gate starts appearing everywhere. Well, for this set, this is the card. I have seen some trying this out in Pioneer, even vintage builds. We'll have to see if that sticks. But Aspiring Spike was playing 4 copies of this in a modern Ledger Shredder Shadow deck this week. And on top of that, a Mono Blue Legacy Delver deck running 4 copies of this has been performing well on MTGO. Beyond that, it is turning out to be a popular Commander card too in a lot of different builds, old and new, including Levine, which we saw a few moments ago. There are a lot of different types of players paying attention to this new card all at once, and that's why you're seeing this spike. Also, it was discussed on the Command Zone podcast at length this week, which could have brought some further attention to it. And that takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. Again, like I mentioned a few moments ago, right now this Pioneer format continues to be hot. First, we have some cards going down in value, though, and Rin and Siri Inseparable is one of them. It's down $3.83 to $31.17. This is the non-foil copy from Collector Boosters, so this is retracting after some recent increases. This got hot because players were anticipating the cat and dog support that was coming from Streets of New Capenna. Sure, it is here now, and people are playing this card more, but there's also more people looking to sell this card than a few weeks back, simply because of the price hike. Those extra copies in the marketplace are calming down the price at least a little bit this week. As I was saying, as expected, Rin and Siri Commander decks are seeing more play now. Plus, this is in the 99 of some new builds too, like Ginny Faye, and to a lesser degree, Jetmir Nexus of Revels. The next one is Aurelia the War Leader. This is the Guilds of Ravnica Boros Guild Kit copy. This particular one only comes in foil. It is down $4.40 this week to $33.01. And you might remember this got hot recently as a lot of players were trying to assemble Commander builds around Isshin Two Heavens as one. This still sees playing those builds as well as a number of others in the format, but the market is moving on a little bit as you can see. This is also found in Pioneer Jeskai Control sideboards. Days Undoing, the copy from the list, is down $5.63 to $13.50. This was added to the list with Crimson Vow sticking around into Streets of New Capenna. And remember, there are less cards in the list now starting with New Capenna, so even though the Magic version of the Stranger Things cards are heavily weighted in the set booster packs, you still see the other cards from the list getting pushed into the market more than usual. And that is why you're seeing such an aggressive price drop around this and a few other cards out there. In Pioneer, it's still a good card and is in control builds when are set. In Legacy, it's in Jeskai control, and it does get a little Commander play, even getting some additional play now in some new builds too. Huiza Augur of Agnes, as well as Rafine and Evelyn. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, is down $8.97 this week to $64.84. This is retracting after some recent increases, and maybe it's not seeing as much Pioneer play as some anticipated, but it is still seeing play. It is found in sideboards of Mono Green Stompy there. In Modern, it's in Mono Green and Colorless Tron, sometimes Eldrazi Tron too. In Legacy, you see this in Mono Green as well as Colorless Cloud Post, and it is getting some increased Commander play too. I have seen some picking this up as an upgrade to the Riveteer's Rampage Commander deck, and others are putting this in fresh builds around a card from there, Henzi Toolbox Tori. And the last card in this section going down in value is Blood Crypt. It is the copy from the list, down $37.58 to $25.45 in theory. Now this has been on the list for Crimson Vow and Neon Dynasty. It has been removed though for New Capenna. And this copy was being manipulated earlier in the week after a very suspect spike last week. This is now down to a more normal level again. Shocklands, of course, are getting another reprint in Unfinity, so keep that in mind. But they all see play in many different decks in multiple formats. In Pioneer, you'll see Blood Crypt in Rakdos Midrange, Jund Sacrifice, and more. Modern, it's in Grixis Death Shadow, Jund, and much more there. It is a big mana-based card for Commander as well. You see this in Korvold builds, and it is a nice addition to a lot of builds around new cards. Agnes, Lord Xander, Zeatora. I've seen people adding this to Riveteer's Rampage, and Maestro's Massacre for that matter, and they're putting it in fresh builds around some cards from those decks. The Beamtown Bullies and Hello, for example. First card moving up in this section is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria from Dominaria. This is up $3.72 this week to $37.99. This was added to the list with Innistrad Midnight Hunt, stayed on through Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, came out for New Capenna, and we did see that copy moving up last week. And this is hot right now, mostly because of Pioneer. It is in Azorius, Jeskai, Esper, and Bant control there. In Modern, you see this in all those same control builds as well. Plus, it's also in a number of Commander decks, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice. Breeding Pool from Dissension goes up $4.01 this week to $41.81. This is the first of a number of Shocklands moving up in value this week. Like I said, Shocklands are all getting another reprint in Unfinity, but there are players scrambling to build Pioneer decks now. And if you need these quickly, well, I guess if you have to buy a copy, at least the original ones will hold their value the best once the reprinting happens. In Pioneer, this is in Hidden Strings, Bant Spirits, and more. Modern, you'll see this in Crashing Footfalls, 4-color Living End, and much more there. And it is a huge mana-based card in Commander as well. Plus, it is in new builds too, like Falco, Spara, Pact Weaver, for example. Another original Shockland, this is Steam Vents from Guild Pact, up $4.65 this week to $41.67. In Pioneer, this one is in Is It Control, Is It Phoenix, and more. Modern, this is in Murktide Regent, Crashing Footfalls, and much more there. This is even showing up in Legacy, Is It Delver, which is a very popular build right now in that format. And it's in a lot of Commander decks, as you can imagine, even some new ones. Lord Xander, as well as Enhello. Sometimes it's in fresh builds of Enhello, other times you'll see this used as an upgrade for Maestro's Massacre. Renata, Call to the Hunt. This is the copy from the list. It goes up $5.16 this week to $8.24. Only there for Strixhaven. Now, this is seeing some additional Commander play in Falco builds. But also, the Pride Across the Multiverse Secret Lair was announced this week. And it includes a reprint of Bearscape, which has inspired some to begin to assemble a Eula Queen Among Bears Commander decks. And many times you do see this card in those builds. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. This is the copy from Theros, up $5.20 this week to $36.85. It was on the list for Zendikar Rising and Kaldheim. We saw that copy going up last week. This is showing up in some newer Pioneer decks that are performing well. Things like Mono Green Ramp, Mono White Midrange, and Selesnya Ramp. This is also in Mono Black Devotion, Mono Green Stompy, and Mono Red Midrange there. Plus, it is seeing increased Commander play now in some Giada Font of Hope builds. Korvold, Fey Curse King is back again. The Throne of Eldraine non-foil copy, that's the one you would find in collector boosters, is up $12.02 to $37.80. The Throne of Eldraine foil copy, which you would find in the Savage Hunger Brawl deck, is up $14.62 to $32.69. And the list copy is up $17.75 to $39.82. It was part of the list for Kaldheim, then it returned in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms and stayed through Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It is not included, though, for New Capenna. In Pioneer, this is in Jund's Sacrifice, but it's really Commander that's been moving this card. As you know, this has been a popular Commander, also in the 99 of some builds there. A lot of New Capenna cards are ensuring that Korvold builds are going to continue to see a lot of play in the future. There's a lot of cards that came out that make treasure tokens. There's Blitz creatures you sacrifice if you pay the Blitz cost. There's the Casualty mechanic that lets you sacrifice a creature to copy a spell. Then you have specific cards that are good with this, things like Riveteer's Ascendancy. Not only are there a number of cards making the Korvold builds better, but you are seeing this in builds around some new commanders too. Agnes, Ziatora, Vazzy, plus I have seen some picking this up to upgrade the Riveteer's Rampage deck, and others are putting this in fresh builds around Henzi. On top of that, this also got a Command Zone podcast mention this week. Last card in this section is yet another original Shockland. This is Hallowed Fountain from Dissension, up $19.32 this week to $49.99. In Pioneer, this one is in Azorius Control, Bant Spirits, and more. Modern, you'll see this in Hammer Time, 4-color Blink, and much more there. It is a big mana-based card too in Commander, as you might have guessed. And it's in some new builds too, like Falco, Rafine, Tivit, Seller of Secrets. You see it in fresh Tivit builds, or sometimes simply it's just used as an upgrade to the Obscura Operation Commander deck. And that brings us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Again, we have some cards going down in value, some going up. First, we have Exquisite Blood. This is the copy from the list. It goes down $3.95 this week to $25. Added to the list with Crimson Vow, still there for New Capenna. Again, this is moving down due to the extra copies in circulation. Also, this was recently reprinted in the Welcome to Castle Dracula Secret Lair. Great Commander card and combo enabler in that format, and it is seeing some additional play now in Queza builds. Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Again, the copy from the list is down $4.09 to $30.50. Added to the list with Midnight Hunt. Still there going into New Capenna. Again, lots of new copies of this are getting out there. This is another good upgrade, though, for Riveteer's Rampage, and I have seen this in fresh builds around Henzi as well. Oboro, Palace in the Clouds, is down $5.05 this week to $79.70, and this is retracting after some recent increases. In Modern, you still see this in Mill as well as Merfolk, and this is in a variety of Commander decks, including Tachiova Benthic Druid. Strangleroot Geist, this is the copy from the list, down $5.14 to $6.73. It was in the list for Crimson Vow and Neon Dynasty. It is now gone for New Capenna. This did jump last week. It's retracting some this week, as you can see. In Modern, though, it does get play in Yawgmoth, which is a popular build. Plus, it sees a little Commander playing Gave Guru of Spores, for example. Liliana of the Veil from Innistrad down 515 this week to 92.58. This card has been incredibly hot since Lurrus of the Dream Den has been banned in Modern. That card really pushed this out of the format for a while, but Liliana is back now in a big way, making a huge comeback. However, after some big spikes, it's not unusual to see some retraction. This card was even spiking last week. In Modern, this is in Jund, Rakdos Midrange, and more, and it does get some commander play in Tergrid God of Fright / Tergrid's Lantern, for example. Last card moving down is Blood Moon from the Dark, down 755 to 104. This was added into the list with Crimson Vow, and it is still there for New Capenna. There was also a recent reprinting of this in the Mischief Secret Lair. However, this original copy from the Dark tends to have a life of its own, since many collectors are interested in getting this in high grade. We have seen it going up a lot recently, but it has been retracting now for the last couple weeks. Sees a lot of play still. In Modern, you'll see this in Murktide Regent, Crashing Footfalls, and more. Legacy, it's in Blood Moon Aggro. Vintage, it's in Izzet Control, and it's in a number of commander builds too, including Krenko Mob Boss. Doubling Season, a couple copies to talk about here. The Double Masters one is up 351 to 88.98. The Ravnica City of Guilds copy is up 542 to 85.47. Huge commander card in many builds, including Rin and Ciri and Korvold. On top of that, Doubling Season plays well with a lot of cards from the new set and the new commander decks as well. For example, I have seen people putting this in builds around Ginny Faye, Jetmir, Jolene, Agnes. This was also mentioned on the Command Zone podcast this week when they were discussing Bootlegger's stash. Next is Malignus. The copy from the list is up 691 this week to 1488. This was in the list from Midnight Hunt through Neon Dynasty, and it also is seeing some increased commander play because of new cards. I've seen this in Zeatora, and others are getting it to upgrade the Riveteer's Rampage deck, or again putting it in fresh builds around Henzi. Gemstone Caverns, the copy from Time Spiral dipped last week. It's rebounding this week, up 757 to 47.99. This was in the list from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms through Neon Dynasty. It was removed, though, for New Capenna. Still seeing a lot of play in Modern. It's in Crashing Footfalls, Dredge, and more. This is also getting a good amount of commander play. Sometimes it shows up in Korvold. Parallel Lives, up 836 this week to $60.30. Another huge commander card found in Rin and Ciri as well as Korvold. Like Doubling Season, this works well with a lot of new cards, and it's in a lot of new builds too, like Ginny Faye, Jetmir, Agnes, Jolene, Vazzy. This was also mentioned on the Command Zone podcast this week when they were discussing Bootlegger's stash. And the last card in this section is Crime and Punishment, up 1029 to 28.99. And yes, this card is moving because of Modern. It is a solid Modern sideboard card that does see play in the popular Yawgmoth builds. Also, it shows up sometimes in calibrated blast boards as well. It handles tokens created by Urza Saga, and it still has enough versatility to be useful in other situations. And that brings us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Vintage, Legacy, 93, 94, or cards that are just popular among collectors. Remember, in this section of the video, the prices you see on the screen for most of the cards are going to be more reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website. That's because in a lot of cases, these cards don't sell all that much in any given week, so we do have to lean a little harder on asking prices. However, as always, if the price on the screen isn't matching what I'm seeing for recent sales, I will point that out. First, we have Mountain, but not any Mountain. This is the one you see on the screen from Portal Second Age. It goes up 321 this week to 591. We've seen this a lot recently. Hard to find basic lands jumping pretty aggressively. Usually this happens when someone decides they want to pick up some copies of a particular hard to find basic land for a deck or maybe a few decks. All the cards that have a reasonable price point are quickly picked up, leaving only the ones with a higher price point. And that's why you see this kind of inflation. Typically, it doesn't last too long. Eventually, more copies come into the marketplace and things stabilize. However, that does take some time, and in some cases, if it is a really hard to find basic land, it might never go back down to where it was originally. Next, we have Tropical Island from Revised up 589 this week to $694.97. Nullrod is up $826 this week to $99. In Legacy, sometimes it's in the sideboard of Azorius Stoneblade. Vintage, it's in a couple sideboards there. Izzet Tempo and Prison Shops. It can also appear in a few commander builds as well. Grim Monolith up $846 this week to $327.50. In Legacy, this is in Colorless Cloudpost and the Epic Gamble. Plus, it sees a good amount of commander play in various builds, like Urza Lord High Artificer, for example. Mana Crypt, that original Book Media promo copy, is up $398 to $363.97. The Eternal Masters copy is up $498 to $193.46. And the Mystery Booster copy is up $10.50 to $190.50. This is in Vintage Grixis Tinker, Paradoxical Outcome, and more. Also, it is a huge commander card in many builds, including Korvold. I've seen this in new decks too, like Lord Xander, and additionally, this is a good upgrade to the delayed Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Secret Lair commander deck. Time Spiral up 1235 this week to 198.81. This is in Legacy High Tide, and it is seeing increased commander play now in some Quiza builds. Demonic Attorney from Unlimited. As a matter of fact, all the rest of the white border cards in this section are from Unlimited, so if you see a white border card on the screen, just know it's from that set. I won't keep saying that. But this is up 1269 this week to 59.31. The original Repentant Blacksmith from Arabian Nights is up 1298 this week to 75.27. Meek Stone climbs 1443 to 62.62. Reverse Damage up 1499 to 79.99. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga. This one's kind of moving back and forth around this price point. This week it's up 1892 to 1078.92. In Legacy, this is in Elves, sometimes Maverick. Vintage, you'll see it in Squee Hollowvine. Great commander card too for a number of builds if you're lucky enough to have one. This is in Korvold and Rin and Siri at times. I've also seen this in some builds around new cards like Jenny Faye, Rocco Cabaretti Caterer, and Jetmir. The original Sorceress Queen from Arabian Nights up 25.96 to 165.57. Divine Intervention up 32.90 to 234.37. Tanos' Coffin up 36.89 to 236.87. Raging River up 39.99 to 399.99. Word of Command is up 44.13 to $444.12. Copy Artifact up 47.70 to 329. Hazazan Tamar is up 48.02 to 350. Nevinyrral's Disc is up 57.89 to 337.89. Force Field is up 82.02 to 687.52. Chaos Orb goes up $155 to $1,600. Is that for real? Well, believe it or not, high-grade raw copies can sell for more than this sometimes, hitting around $1,700 or more. High-grade graded copies can get up to about $4,000. Mahamadi Jinn, this is up $247.08 to $398.96. Is this one for real? Well, no, this one is inflated due to some high asking prices. High-grade raws sell for about $85 typically. High-grade graded copies just above $200. Underground Sea, this one's up $280 to $1,819.99. Now this does fall between a high-grade raw and high-grade graded copy price, but it is a little closer to the high-grade raw price. And the last card in this section is Island of Wak Wak. It's up in theory $1,221.26 to $2,000.77. Is that real? No, this price is inflated due again to some high asking prices. High-grade raws tend to go for about $785, but I did see a high-grade graded copy sell recently for about $1,400. At least it's closing in on that price point, but again, that's for a high-grade graded copy. That takes us to the Commander Spotlight. Now, all the cards in this section are moving, at least in part because of Commander. There could be other factors as well, and in some cases, Commander might not be the key driver. I will let you know as we go through, though. First, we have Mystic Gate from Shadowmoor. It's up $3 to $46. This is in a variety of Commander builds, and I have seen some players picking this up to upgrade Obscura Operation, or to put it in fresh builds around Tivit. In Modern, this he's playing Azorius, Bant, and Desper Control. Coercive Portal, another good upgrade to Obscura Operation, and it's in fresh builds around Tivit as well. Because of this increased Commander play, it is up $3 and a cent to $17.55. Graveyard Trespasser, this is the copy from Double Feature. It goes up $3.05 this week to $4.98. Now, this does get a little Commander play in Isham builds, for example, but Pioneer is the key driver here. First, though, let's start with Standard. It does see play in Mono Black Control, sometimes in Grixis Control there. In Pioneer, it's in a number of builds, Rakdos and Orzhov Midrange, Mono Black Aggro, sometimes Mardu Greasefang as well. Recruiter of the Guard, the one from Conspiracy Take the Crown, goes up $3.11 this week to $34.98. This is seeing increased Commander play now in decks like Rocco, Rigo Streetwise Mentor, and Best Soul Nourisher. In Legacy, this is in Death and Taxes, and Cephalid Breakfast. Scalding Tarn, the one from Modern Masters 2017, goes up $3.18 this week to $35.67. This is a fetch land, so you know it's going to see extensive play in multiple decks and multiple formats. This is in lots of Commander builds like Korvold, and it's in some builds around new cards like Lord Xander and Hello. Sometimes it's in fresh builds around that card. Sometimes it's used as an upgrade for Maestro's Massacre. In Modern, this is all over the place, of course, Murktide Regent, Crashing Footfalls, and much more. Legacy, it's in as a Delver, Jeskai Control, and much more there. Vintage, Grixis Tinker, Is It Tempo, and more in that format too. Tempting Worm goes up $3.19 this week to $11.99. This is an older card yet to be reprinted, and it is seeing more Commander play now. It can be a good upgrade to Riveteer's Rampage if you are using the Beamtown Bullies as the commander, or of course many are putting this in fresh builds around that card as well. Another card seeing increased commander play, Dika Fractal Theorist. This is up 320 this week to $12.99. Some are picking this up as an upgrade to Maestro's Massacre. Others are putting this in fresh builds around a card from there and Hello. And to a lesser degree, I've seen this in some errant street artist builds too. Kozilek Butcher of Truth from Ultimate Masters goes up $334 this week to $80.29. This was on the list for Strixhaven and Modern Horizons 2. It is in various commander builds, including Kozilek the Great Distortion. In Modern, sometimes this is an Eldrazi-tron. Legacy, you'll see it in Mono Green Cloudpost. And it did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week too. Chandra Dressed to Kill from Innistrad Crimson Vow. This is up $336 this week to $32.99. This is seeing increased commander play now in Cyrix, Carrier of the Flame builds. In Standard, this is in Gruul aggro, sometimes Mono Red aggro as well. Pioneer has been pushing it the most. It's in Mono Red aggro and Mono Red midrange there. In Modern, you'll see this in Obosh aggro, sometimes Mono Red aggro, and generic Ragavan too. Undiscovered Paradise up $353 this week to $23.90. This is getting a little commander play, but moving more because of its status on the reserve list. This could be the start of a buyout, something to keep an eye on. Marisi, Breaker of the Coil. This only comes in foil. It's up $356 this week to $613. This has been a fairly popular commander, plus it's in the 99 of many builds too, including Rin and Siri. And it's in a number of builds around New Capenna cards as well. Jetmir, Ginny Fey. It is a good upgrade to the Cabaretti Cacophony commander deck. And I have seen this in fresh builds around a card from there too. Kit Kanto Mayhem Diva. Another older card that's yet to be reprinted, Ebon Blade Reaper. This is up $382 this week to $599, and this is seeing increased commander play now because of Streets of New Capenna. It is a good upgrade to Riveteer's Rampage if you are using the Beamtown Bullies as the commander, or again, many are putting this in fresh builds around that card. Plus, there is a Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate leak that could be pushing this some too. Now, it is a leak, so I'm not going to show you the card or go into a lot of detail around it, because I know a lot of people want to wait for the card to officially be previewed before they hear these spoilers, and I do want to respect that. I'm just going to tell you enough to let you know what I'm talking about and let you look up the card if you're interested in learning more. But if you don't want to hear any more, go ahead and skip to the next card now. The card I'm referring to is called John Arenicus Shattered One. It is a Dimir legendary elf wizard that also allows you to give away your creatures to opponents and goad them. Yet another card that has not been reprinted. This is Razorclaw Bear. It goes up $401 this week to $47.93. This is another one moving because of the Pride Across the Multiverse Secret Lair and the new printing of Bearscape I mentioned earlier. Razorclaw Bear is one of the more expensive and harder to find bears for those Commander Ayula builds. The iconic Masters copy of Avacyn, Angel of Hope. This is up $432 this week to $51.05. Fairly popular commander, and remember, there was some Angel support in New Capenna. This is showing up in the 99 of some builds around new cards, Giada, and to a lesser degree, Rafine. Plea for Power. This is up $458 this week to $819, and it is seeing more commander play because of, you guessed it, Streets of New Capenna. This is a good upgrade to Obscura Operation if you're running Tivit Seller of Secrets as your commander, or again, some players are just going to put this in fresh builds around Tivit. To a lesser degree, I'm also seeing this in some Quiza builds. Boldware Heavyweights. This one's up $479 to $8, and do I see a Morningtide rare that's yet to be reprinted? I might have to use my one per video. During this time period in Magic, there was a recession in the game. Less packs were cracked, so some of these rares that have yet to be reprinted tend to get a little spiky when people pay attention to them. Why are people paying attention to this? Well, it is a good upgrade to Riveteer's Rampage if you are using the Beamtown Bullies as the commander, or you can put it in fresh builds around the Bullies. Bruvac the Grandiloquent. The Jumpstart copy goes up $410 this week to $25.18. The copy from the list goes up $482 to $26.20. This was in the list for Modern Horizons 2 and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. So here's another fairly popular commander, but this can be pretty devastating alongside a new card, and that is Lord Xander. Many players are putting Bruvac in those commander builds now. Bronze Bombshell up $484 to $14.99. You know the drill by now. Good upgrade to Riveteer's Rampage if you are using the Beamtown Bullies as your commander, or something for a fresh build around the Bullies again. Thoughtlash. This is up $537 to $24.22. This is in Legacy Thoughtshift, which does not see a ton of play, but can put up a good result on MTGO from time to time. This is also getting a little more commander play too in some Rigo builds, and it is on the reserve list, so it doesn't take too much to move the price. Gilded Drake is up $7.50 this week to $340.99. Gets a good amount of commander play for those lucky enough to have a copy. You do see this in various decks, including Kess Dissident Mage. Sarah's Sanctum up $8.96 this week to $359.95. This has been hot recently since it is good in enchantment-heavy commander builds, and Neon Dynasty did bring a lot of enchantment support. You'll see this in Sithis Harvest Hand and much more. Grand Crescendo. Check this one out. It's up $14.78 to $19.87. This is in the Cabaretti Cacophony commander deck. And you know what? It turns out this is just a really good commander card in general for white. It is showing up in a ton of builds now, old and new. Keep an eye on this card long term. Psychic Allergy up $23.47 to $35. This doesn't really see any play to speak of, but it is another lower costed reserve list card that has been bought out, and we have been noticing recently that that is a trend. Finally, for this section, we have City of Shadows up $50.59 to $189.99 this week. This does see a little commander play, but again, this is a reserve list buyout. In February, there was a public buyout of the card and it reached a peak high of about $225. Then it began to trend down. This looks like a follow-up buyout now that the price has relaxed some. And that takes us to the premium spotlight. Now, I could spend a lot of time talking about premium cards that are jumping up, going back down. They are very volatile in a lot of cases, but we have limited time, so I don't want to talk about cards in the section that are being bought out or that are just simply dry for a week or two and then they're going to move back to their old price. I try to pick out some cards that feel like they're moving pretty naturally with what's happening in the market. Today, I have 5 cards to discuss. Now, much like the vintage section, many times the cards in this section don't see a lot of sales, so we do have to lean a little harder on asking prices. However, if the price on the screen does not match with what I'm seeing when it comes to true sales, I'll point that out. First, we have Malignus. This is the foil copy from Avacyn Restored. It's going up $10.42 this week to $46.11. So far, I haven't seen any sales exceeding $15, but the last sale occurred before this card got really hot. Sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike when you look at these prices, so we'll have to see if players are willing to actually pay this for a foil copy of the card. Boldware Heavyweights. This is the foil copy for Mourning, tied up $11.39 to $49.99. Now, these have been selling for about $20 before this week's spike of the non-foil copy. I don't think this price is out of the question in the near future. Grand Crescendo. This is the extended art copy. It is up $12.96 this week to $18.06. These are in fact selling for the price you see on the screen, but that's not too surprising since the regular copy spiked to about the same price. Now, this does happen sometimes early in set releases. Many times sellers will crack a lot of collector booster packs early on to sell those singles, and cards like this sort of flood the market, at least for a short period of time. I would expect the extended art copies to drift higher soon though. Ledger Shredder. Okay, all these prices on the screen are very true to what I'm seeing when it comes to real sales. The extended art copy is up $11.75 to $12.99. The Streets of New Capenna foil copy is up $15.77 to $16.93. And the extended art foil copy is up $25.67 to $30. And finally, we have Ebon Blade Reaper. The foil copy from Onslaught is up $42.49 to $107.48. Or is it? The highest I've seen this sell for so far is about $50 in high grade. Sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike though with the prices that they're putting out there. We'll have to see if any of these cards do break the $100 mark or not. Again, remember, most sellers will put a card out for a high price, but they usually accept a fair offer. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. If you stuck with me all the way to the end, thanks for being here. There were a lot of cards this week to talk about, as you saw. Until next time, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.